Payne is coming up, I would like to invite Bill Payne to be the guest speaker, or to be the first speaker, because everybody that wants to speak will get to speak. I'll leave it up to the vice chairman, but Bill Payne is probably the only person out here that actively he just didn't meet Martin Luther King. No, he's not the only person. Amanifu met Martin Luther King too. Bill, come on over and talk about Dr. King here in Newark, New Jersey, and your interactions with him, but use this speaker here.
People who are holding big banners, stand on the curb and hold them out for the people going by, so they can hear, so they can pick up on the politics of this assembly. We're still working. Rock them shines, rock them shines.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you. Larry and I were together earlier, and I had the honor of participating with him at a program recognizing the life of Dr. King. I said earlier today that I was a little bit conflicted because I wasn't sure how to celebrate, but to celebrate his life, yes. To celebrate what he had done to make this a better world. And I had the good fortune of being active with the NAACP when I was a teenager, and I eventually became the national chairman of the youth and college chapters of the NAACP. And in that capacity, I went to a convention in 1956 where Dr. King was a speaker. And the interesting thing about it was that in those days, people like Roy Wilkins and some of the other older civil rights leaders seemed to be jealous or resented the fact that this young 29-year-old preacher was taking the stage. And as a matter of fact, they got together, the older ones got together and said that he was not going to be allowed to speak at that convention. Well, this was a national convention of NAACP. I think it was the 47th convention. And as I said, we had young people there. And I was the chairman, the national chairman of the youth movement. So we said that if Dr. King doesn't speak as representative of youth, since he was only 29, then nobody's going to speak. We got together and we convinced Thurgood Marshall even. Thurgood Marshall was at that convention as well. And I was on the Constitution Revision Committee with Thurgood Marshall. And when I tried to speak in that committee meeting, Thurgood Marshall looked at me and said, boy, just be quiet, because youth should be seen and not heard. But we overcame that, and as a matter of fact, with the thousands of people in the Civic Auditorium in San Francisco, when we introduced A. Philip Randolph, you know the name, A. Philip Randolph, the head of the Stephen Carr Porters, was one of the speakers. And I introduced A. Philip Randolph to speak because I was the MC that afternoon. And it was interesting to me that A. Philip Randolph, a great labor leader, when he started speaking, he had a kind of a British accent. He talked about the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And I looked over here, I wanted to know where I wanted to know where he was, because whoever was speaking didn't sound like he looked. But it turns out that A. Philip Randolph, whom we all know was a great leader, he spoke. And then I had the honor of speaking as a representative of youth, and I spoke about the young people who were getting involved with the civil rights movement, fighting against the wars that the United States was getting in. And then I had the honor of introducing the leader of the youth movement in civil rights, and I introduced Dr. Martin Luther King. And it was an incredible moment in the Civic Auditorium. I don't know how many thousand people were there, 2,000 or 3,000 people. And when Dr. King spoke, I still remember some of the words that he said. He said, discrimination and segregation are diametrically opposed to the principles of democracy. And then he said, all of the dialectics of the logicians cannot make them lie down together. And I said, this man is deep. And then he was absolutely incredible. And then he also said, the human race is like a piano keyboard. You have to play all of the keys from a bass black to a treble white key in order to get harmony. And he said, if we're going to win this fight, we all have to get involved. And that's really the message I have right now, as a matter of fact. That if we are going to resolve this situation that we're in now, everybody has to be involved. I mean, all of us who who are darker colored and the whites. This is a job for everybody to do it. We're not going to solve it as long as some people sit back and say, it's not my fight. Of course it's your fight. You see what's happened down in the White House, having everybody sat back and look what happened. We got who or what in the White House now. So it's a responsibility for all of us, whether we're black or white. And the contributions that African Americans have made to the development of this country needs to be known by everybody. And some of you may know that I introduced the legislation, the Amistad legislation, which says that every contribution that we have made to the development of this country must be taught, not just in Black History Month, February, not just to black students in the inner city, but all kids need to learn about the contributions that African Americans have made to make this country is. And until, as American, precisely, somebody took the words out of my mouth. Black history is American history. And you teach American history, you have to include, not exclude the people that look like us, that fought even in the Revolutionary War. When I went to school many, many years ago, I didn't know that black soldiers fought in the Revolutionary War. Of course we did. They taught me about Nathan Hale and Patrick Henry and all those white heroes. But they never told me about Crispus Attucks. We thought that was the only one that. But they never told us about Peter Salem. Peter Salem fought in the Battle of Bunker Hill. Peter Salem was the one that killed Major Pitcairn. We were taught about Major Pitcairn. He was the enemy. So we end up learning about everything else, and they almost surgically removed the participation of blacks. Amistad says you cannot teach any period of history and not include the contributions that African Americans have made, because we helped make this country. Those traffic lights stopped because it came out of the design of a black man. The open heart surgery, the very first time successful operation on open heart surgery was by a black doctor. That we have to know that everybody must learn this. Our kids need to learn it, and the white kids need to too. And our kids will then hold their heads up high and said, we did that too, and I can be whatever it is. I'll tell you, my epiphany came. I grew up in the city of Newark, and there was racism here, and everybody was blacks were second-class citizens. But one day I read a newspaper, and I read about a man called Ralph Bunche. Dr. Bunche was a black man like me. Dr. Bunche was at the United Nations, and there was wars going on in the Middle East, and they sent Count Bernadotte, who was a Swedish diplomat. They sent him there to negotiate the peace. He couldn't do it. He died or something. They looked around, as they usually do, and said, well, who can we send? And they always looked over at Dr. Bunche. They kept looking around. And finally they said, I guess we're going to have to send Ralph Bunche. Well, Dr. Bunche went to the Middle East, and he brought peace to the Middle East for the very first time. And as a result of that, he won the Nobel Peace Prize, the first African American to do that. That's our children need to know that. And that's when I felt that we weren't there if he can do it, so could I. I was taught about the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. And if that's the case, then we are all brothers and sisters, and therefore no one has to stand up on us. That we also deserve to have our freedom and our contribution. But anyway, our children need to know that. Our children need to know that we were there. Our children need to know that, so that when they sat in the classroom like I did in Belleville, only 2 blacks in the class, and the teacher was talking about blacks were Pickaninnies and slaves and things like that. Never once told me about the positive thing. So the Amistad legislation, which I introduced in 1992, is legislation that says that every child should learn that, so that our kids will hold their heads up high. You mean to tell me we did that? You mean to tell me we came up with blood plasma? You mean to tell me that we're the ones that did that? Well, nobody ever told me that. We're going to tell them so that our kids will hold their heads up high and say, I can do it too. So that's my story, and there's still so much more needs to be done. I'm not going to take any more time, but I want to say that everybody has an obligation to participate in this struggle. They still sing the song, We Shall Overcome. After all these years, it should be, we have overcome. We have overcome. Now, the thing that I'd like to say is that all of us, no matter who we are, need to make sure that we get involved in this struggle. The NAACP shouldn't be struggling now. The other organizations should be struggling. We all need to be there. And I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, and I hope that we'll be able to continue to fight. Okay, thank you very much.
And the struggle continues. Got to bring on this sister real quick, because she's got to get on a conference call to continue organizing struggle and opposition, but she wants to address this. So Renee from the Poor People's Campaign, come on, give us some words.
Thank you. No justice?
No peace.
Right. I've been involved with the Poor People's Campaign for over 15 years now, the new Poor People's Campaign that Dr. King was working on at the end of his life. And when African Americans got their civil and political rights in law, he realized it didn't change their economic situation, not one bit. And he also realized that we needed to come together, people across color lines and other artificial divides, to fight together to end poverty in our country. And so the new Poor People's Campaign is organized around systemic racism, poverty, the war economy, and ecological devastation, to build a movement so that we can all take power and take back what's ours, right, in this country. I'm a social worker. I grew up in poverty in Camden County myself, on welfare most of my childhood, almost all of my childhood. And I saw when I was finishing my master's degree years ago in social work that for every one family or one person I could help as a social worker, there were at least 2 in line who couldn't get access to that needed service or assistance, right? And we don't provide people with the supports they need. We just throw up barriers to getting self-sufficiency in our society. We currently have 37% or more than 1 in 3 people in our state who are unable to afford their basic needs on a regular basis. We lost many high and mid-wage jobs during the Great Recession over 10 years ago. I'll continue to create this devastation on people. It really is terrorism, right? This is terror on the people in our country, and we need to come together to change this. And so the Poor People's Campaign is organizing across the country. We are organized in at least 40 states, including New Jersey, and some of my fellow coordinating committees here are with me. And room over here. We will be holding 40 days of direct moral action, civil disobedience, starting around Mother's Day weekend through June. And we invite you to come and join us and be a part of this campaign. My friends here have some pledge cards that you can sign up. We also have cards you can go online or text to get information. But we also have 2 trainings coming up on April 14th in Highland Park and on April 21st from 1 to 5 in, which church though? Bethany here in Newark, right? From 1 to 5, they're both 1 to 5, April 21st and April 14th. And we invite you to join us and to lift up the voices that are not heard in our society. We have homeless people that are all around us in our daily lives, and most people don't realize the level of homelessness we have, right? They don't realize the level of poverty, and they don't recognize it in themselves sometimes, right? But we are all struggling. And as the late great blues artist said, Solomon Burke, before he died on his last CD, if one of us is chained, none of us are free. And we all need to come together to change this for our society and for our state. Thank you.
Give Renee a hand. As we know, at the end of Dr. King's life, his last major project was to begin to organize the Poor People's Campaign, to take Afro-Americans from the ghettos, Latinos from the barrios, Native people from the reservations, poor whites from Appalachia, right, to the seat of power, the nation's capital, and to stay there, right, to occupy the capital until there was either jobs or guaranteed income. Right. As a giant step forward to put an end to poverty. That task remains to be done. That task remains to be done, and we need the movement that looks like this to accomplish that. So the work that Renee and other folks who are working on the Poor People's Campaign are doing is important work, and hopefully, we can cut into that and build the Poor People's Campaign as it moves across New Jersey. Where's Keisha? Keisha, come speak to us, sister.
Anyone who wants, follow the New Jersey Poor People's Campaign on Facebook. We'll be announcing all the trainings, the times, the dates on that Facebook page. NJ Poor People's Campaign.
Somebody pick up Daniel's hat. It's over there. From the mighty Newark Anti-Violence Coalition, our comrade in struggle and sister, Keisha.
All power to the people.
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 My name is Keisha Yuri, the chair of the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition. I would like to thank everyone for coming out today for the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. So we know that Martin Luther King was one of our great heroes, and we also know that he was assassinated like so many of our other great heroes. And so his work will not be in vain as long as there's one of us or a few of us out here doing this work. We know that the work is not in vain. As long as we continue to speak his name, his spirit will always be here. And so the work of Martin Luther King is nonviolence, civil disobedience, bringing and speaking truth to power.
Yes, right.
Going and talking to the power structure.
Yes, right.
And empowering our people in the community, our poor people, to be able to speak and have a voice. And so his work was also about the labor unions, right? Yeah. And organizing the labor unions and organizing poor people in the community, because we know the poor people are the ones who always matter in the community. Yeah. That's the spirit and the heartbeat of the communities. And so today, as we commemorate his life, we want to continue to empower people to keep the name, to keep the spirit, to keep the work. And we like to thank the People's Organization for Progress for always staying on task, right? Always. People's Organization for Progress always reminding us of these anniversary dates so that we never forget. So that we never forget. So that we never, ever, ever forget. That's right. And so I would like to thank everyone for coming today. Continue to do the work. Continue to do the work. No justice, no peace. Right. And we have to keep our voices out here, to keep the issues out here so that our people know that we're always fighting on the front lines. Right. All power to the people.
All power to the people. Thank you, Keisha. Martin Luther King. Dare to struggle. Dare to win. Martin Luther King. Dare to struggle. Dare to win. We out here to celebrate the life and to never forget the death of a warrior for social justice. Not an icon for peace, but a warrior for social justice, for black freedom, for emancipation of all oppressed people. We are here to celebrate the life of a warrior and never forget that. All those who would try to turn him into a peaceful icon, a dead statue. No, we have a memory of a living, fighting warrior for the people. We will always celebrate that. Our POP resident historian, Martin Luther King is too young. He took Harriet Tubman to school, to preschool, because he's from Southampton County, Virginia also. Our brother, beloved brother, Amanifu, who also did meet Dr. King, will give us a few words. Power to the people, all. Martin Luther King. Dare to struggle.
Dare to win.
I was one of those who was able to meet Dr. King at a very young age. I think I was about 13 years old at the time, but this was down in Virginia, where I was growing up at. Not long after the Montgomery bus boycott, when he was on a national speaking tour. And I had a stepfather who was a prominent Baptist minister, and all the preachers, of course, wanted to meet Dr. King on that speaking tour. So the father took me with him. But I found Dr. King not only a great man, because he was very down to earth, very easy to talk to. And Dr. King had a good sense of humor. But I was able to meet him on several occasions. And the last time I talked with him physically was in Los Angeles, California, where I had moved on to. Not long before he was assassinated. This was at the Los Angeles Coliseum, where the Rams played. I don't know whether they play there now. They was playing there then. Okay, well, that was the largest arena in the city. And wow, it was the place was practically packed. But the question that we have to appreciate Dr. King, the sacrifices that he made, and along with others at that time. But I was lucky to be involved, and I was able to meet not only the King, but many of his associates, Ralph Abernathy, Andrew Young,
Jesse Jackson was around, but also Stokely Carmichael, H. Rap Brown, and the leaders of the early Black Panther Party, Bobby Seals, Huey Newton, Elder Stevens. I was able to meet all these brothers, you know, living in California. So I learned from all of them, and we learned from each other. And so we must appreciate, you know, this great man. How many of y'all who remember the saying the Panthers used to have, like, called right on, brother? Right on. Any of y'all old enough to remember that? Yes. The brother who created that saying was a friend of mine. His name was Terry. Terry was an ex-pimp who became an activist. And whenever you would call the Panther office in Los Angeles, before hanging up, Terry would say, right on, brother. Right on. And Freddie Stone, they caught on. But once again, we appreciate the work of Dr. King.
Thank you. We not only appreciate the work of Dr. King, but we got to grasp dialectical relationship between the leadership and the masses. Because, you know, Dr. King didn't make the history made Dr. King. Because if you remember, in the early days of the Montgomery bus boycott, he was very reluctant. Yeah. He was very reluctant to take leadership. He learned leadership in the course of struggle, being pushed by the masses of people striving for their freedom. So we can't be relying on just the hero. We have to have the movement that makes the hero. And that's just one of the strengths and lessons that I think we learned from Dr. King's contribution to history. The close link with the masses of people. To sum up the aspirations and desires of the time, that segregation had to go. And he put his life on the line and ultimately paid the highest price. So he demonstrated selfless devotion to the struggle of freedom for people. Fundamental lessons. You want to lead? Selflessly devote yourself.
That's right.
Be close to the masses and represent the aspirations and desires of the masses of people. At that moment of time, that's where Martin Luther King Jr. was. And gave a great leap forward in the struggle for the liberation of humanity. So that we celebrate. We will never forget. We will never forget. At the end, Dr. King pointed out major bad things in the world: racism, poverty, materialism, and war. And he came out against the greatest purveyor of violence in the world, his government. And for having that courage, he was ostracized by the ruling class. He was ostracized by mainstream churches, black and white.
That's right. Tell the truth.
He had the courage to recognize the importance of opposing imperialist war. Well, the struggle against imperialist war goes on, and Madeline, you're going to talk to us about it and talk about how we can maintain the legacy of struggle against imperialist war today, 50 years later, after the assassination of this Prince of Peace.
Okay. Thank you, Larry. Thanks to everyone for being out here. As many of you know, I'm the director of New Jersey Peace Action. We're based in Bloomfield. We were founded in 1957, and there has probably not been one single day in those 61 years when the United States has not been at war, has not threatened war, has not been waging war either overseas or right here at home. And so what the New Jersey Peace Action is part of a coalition called the New Jersey Anti-War Agenda. And this Saturday, April 7th, is the first Saturday of the month. And since January, we've been holding vigils here, rallies here on the first Saturday of every month against the wars overseas and the wars at home. This one, coming up on Saturday, will feature at least 20 people, young and old alike, reading from the Beyond Vietnam War speech. Larry was mentioning that when Dr. King had the courage to step outside of the civil rights movement and start advocating against war and also against poverty, that's when he had a big target on his back. And he delivered, this was 50 years ago, his assassination. But 51 years ago, April 4th, 1967, was the day that he delivered the Beyond Vietnam War speech at Riverside Church in New York City. And this is when, as Larry said, he mentioned that the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today is the United States. And you think 51 years later, is that still true? Yes. The greatest purveyor of violence in the world today is our own country, right here. Right here. Whether it's here in Newark, or Trenton, or Camden, or Philadelphia, or overseas in Yemen, in Syria, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, potentially North Korea. We just found out, I feel so much better being here right now. I just came from 2 meetings with aides to Senator Booker and Senator Menendez, and we were pussyfooting around some of these issues. Oh, we also have to mention Palestine, Gaza, and what happened there last Friday, and what will continue to happen there, where Palestinians get shot in the back for peacefully protesting the fact that Israel is occupying their land and their territory. Does that... Philippines, well, I could go on, because we found out that not only is the United States supplying material support to Saudi Arabia to go after Yemen, we're also supplying material support to France to wage war in Mali. We're trying to wage war in Ghana. We have 53 or 54 military bases in Africa, not there to protect anybody but the United States industrial or corporate interests, and it just goes on and on. And it's gone kind of, it's racing out of control. You add Bolton, John Bolton, and as National Security Advisor, Pompeo as Secretary of State, and Haswell, as a CIA director, and we're bringing back all the torturers. We're bringing back people who made apologies for torturers. Yes, well, not we, sorry. Yeah, thank you, Larry. I'm not, you're not, we're not. But what we're saying to the rest of the world is one big, you know what? We just want to continue to wage war wherever we want to, whenever we want to, however we want to, whether the Congress knows about it, whether the people know about it, and each and every dollar that's taken to fight that war is taken out of Newark, out of Camden, out of New Jersey, out of everybody's pockets here. So, what I'd like to ask is people to come on Saturday, April 7th, from 11 to 1, right here, right where we're standing right at this moment. If you haven't signed up to read, we have the whole speech divided into 20 pages. We've got 18 readers, so we have space for 2 more. We also are looking for an official photographer, I think. So come up to me, please, if you want. I have flyers here, and I should just mention as I point to these flyers that talk about when and where and what time, that there's also, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little pie chart here. And the pie chart, the big blue area on the pie chart, it's just, the area on the pie chart that's blue, it represents over 50% of the pie chart. It's all for military expenses. And if you look at education, maybe it's 6%. If you look at alternate energy, maybe it's 3%. And so all that money is being stolen right out of our pockets, out of our communities, from public transportation, public health, public education, the whole 9 yards. So please, if you want to join us and you want to take a formal role on Saturday, please see me. And then everyone else can come and be part of this, because it's 50 years ago today, the assassination of Dr. King, 51 years precisely to the day, the delivery of this speech, and we think, many think, that was one of the reasons. That and the Poor People's Campaign and the sanitation workers' strike were all part of the reason why Dr. King was assassinated. So we need to honor and continue his legacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline. This Saturday and every first Saturday of the month, the anti-war mobilization and vigil right here. Right here. As we know, Dr. King strove to unite the black freedom struggle, and was supported with the trade union movement, that he died in the course of helping to organize the resistance of the lowest of the low, the sanitation workers of Memphis. And y'all know I always proudly wear my bold gold, but today I wear in honor of the sanitation workers, I am a man. Because they not only stood up in Memphis for an added nickel to a dollar, a few pennies, but for human dignity, and fought against the legacy of slavery, because that's what it was. The white guy drove the truck, the black guys handled the garbage. And they said, I am a man, we are entitled to dignity and respect. And they too risked their lives to demand that. So in struggling to maintain our ties to trade union movement, I want to bring up a sister who is a good friend and comrade in struggle of ours, Carol Gay, from the Industrial Union Council. And while she's coming, I want everybody to give a shout out to the ACLU of New Jersey, who have led the way in the legal struggle to get power for the people. In struggling for our, in Newark, Civilian Complaint Review Board with power. When we say power to the people, that's taking some control from the ruling class and giving it to the masses. And so we need the political constituency to win this battle. Because there's pushback from the police, there's pushback from other elements of the state, and we got to have a pushback from the masses of people. But everybody, I want to give a shout out to the ACLU. Carol, talk to us about labor and activism.
Thank you, Larry. Good afternoon, sisters and brothers.
Good afternoon.
This is a very special day today. I mean, we are always here on April 4th, and the IUC is always proud to stand with the People's Organization for Progress, but especially today for this special commemoration. To me, there's two sacred days, April 4th and January 15th. And it's so important for us to be here today, and it's good to see all the organizations out here today. And as well as Larry just mentioned, and as we all know, Dr. King was murdered in Memphis while supporting the Memphis sanitation workers in their struggle for their contract and for AFSCME was their union. But they were struggling for economic justice and basic dignity. And of course we know that there were huge demonstrations in Memphis today, marches and in DC. So it was good to see that this is happening all over the country today in honor of the sanitation workers and in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King. Of course we know that he was also targeted for opposing the Vietnam War and of accusing the U.S. government of being the greatest purveyor of violence in the world. And sadly, so sadly, this is even more so today. It's even worse today. And Dr. King, thank goodness back then, 50 years ago, he was calling for a radical revolution of values and for fundamental economic change. And we're still calling for that today, because nothing has gotten any better. And now 50 years later, everything that Dr. King worked for is under attack. I mean, it's all being dismantled right before our eyes. And I don't have to tell anybody here that racism is alive and well and running rampant, not just alive and well, but running rampant. And the military-industrial, now prison complex, it's also stronger than ever. I think Dr. Martin Luther King is rolling in his grave to see what's going on today with militarism and the just out of control militarism that this U.S. government is responsible for. And as I said, poverty is worse today. We don't even need to go into all the statistics because I mean, it's just outrageous that in this day and age, it's gotten worse, not better. Renee did explain some of that very well. And the wealth gap is growing wider and wider by the day. So our work is cut out for us. There is so much we still need to do, and that's why we're here to ask you, all of you, to join the Poor People's Campaign and get involved in it now. This is a campaign for moral revival, not just to save our failing democracy, to save this society from the abysmal failures that have, it's just, well, I keep repeating myself, it's getting worse.
It always looks darkness before the light.
Always darkness before the light, yes. And we're all going to be working for that light, right? So not only is it a campaign for fundamental economic justice, it is sounding the alarm. The Poor People's Campaign is sounding the alarm against the triple evils of systemic racism, militarism, and poverty, as did Martin Luther King, and also today against ecological devastation. Something that is one of the worst things facing us today, climate change. And they're also adding, they're talking about the distortion, distortion of the moral narrative. I mean, we've got all these, you know, the really right-wing fundamentalists that are truly distorting the moral narrative. Yes, fundamental hypocrites, that's a good word for them. So, anyway, as Renee has already explained, it starts, this campaign launches nationwide. There's now 42 states involved, and it launches Mother's Day, goes through 40 days of action to June 23rd, where we will be convening in Washington, D.C. And I share Larry's dream that one day we've got to occupy every congressional office. That is my dream. We have to get enough people in Washington to occupy every office. Not just march or do one-day marches in the streets, but literally occupy every Washington office. Maybe then they will. Maybe then they'll take us a little more seriously.
We're our buddies in the gears of government.
Right, exactly. Gotta stop the machine, right? Stop the machine. So, we'll be asking you to come to Trenton. There's going to be a lot of state capitol Trenton-centered activities, probably on Mondays in May and June. And so, as has been pointed out already, there's the New Jersey Poor People's Campaign Facebook page. It has to be, each word has to be spelled out. New Jersey Poor People's Campaign is the Facebook page, and the website is poorpeoplescampaign.org. There are pledge cards here, so hopefully everybody's been given a pledge card. We'd love to collect them today. You can sign up online, but we're happy to collect them today while you're here. And trainings have been mentioned. There's trainings on May 14th. May 14th. All my pledge cards are falling away. April 14th.
You said May 14th.
Oh, April. Sorry, April 14th. Coming up very soon. And the first training's in Highland Park at the Reformed Church, 1 to 5. And then there will be another training in Newark at the Bethany Baptist on the 21st. So that's local for people. And I'm looking for musicians and artists. So if you want to get involved in the arts and culture part of this Poor People's Campaign, please see me. And there's all the information's available today, the flyers for the training, the pledge cards, and let's get involved, okay? Because as we all know, Martin Luther King's called for working class unity around racial and economic justice. And that is possible, right? It is possible. So, it is possible. This campaign brings all of our issues together, and it's about lifting up those most affected by racism and poverty and the effects of militarism. So, if this campaign's about people power, that is Pop's forte, people power. So, power to the people.
Power to the people. Y'all give Carol a round of applause. Great. Of our sister organizations, comrades in struggle, ripped from the NAACP. Wait a minute, before we do that, we're a little bit off, but it was 6:01 50 years ago that Dr. King was shot. So let's observe a moment of silence in memory of our fallen hero and warrior. Long live the spirit of Martin Luther King Jr. Long live the spirit of Martin Luther King Jr. Live like him. Dare to struggle and dare to win. Rick, let's hear from the NAACP.
Hey, everybody. Hey. I'm here to wake you up. All right? I'm here to wake you up. I'm Rick Robinson from the NAACP in Newark. I'm the Criminal Justice Chairperson. Now, we are all fortunate to be here. You know why? This man, this statue behind me, is the reason that we are fighting. Do not give up your fight. This man was taken from us years ago, and he was way too young. Way too young. So, on behalf of the Newark NAACP, I implore you to actually keep up with this dream. Housing is a mess. Education is a mess. Dirty water. Municipalities and cities are drinking dirty water. How can this be? Regarding our state legislation, regarding our federal legislation, this should not be. You are all taxpayers. Everybody in here. Your money should be going towards enhancing this country, not crippling the people who are voiceless and taking advantage of them. So, MLK is a superhero to a lot of people. And believe me, his dream will go on because people like me and people like you all will fight for this fire. I implore you to keep up this winning attitude, this champion attitude, because that's what the man would have wanted. Power to the people! Power to the
people! Matt Smith from Food and Water Watch, come on up here.
Power to the people! Power to the people! Thank you, brothers and sisters, and thank you, Pop, again, for organizing this action to both commemorate and carry on the legacy of King. I'm going to be very brief. There's three things that I look to in King and why he's such a hero. One, he was a radical. Two, he was an organizer. And three, he put his body on the line. And those things matter, and they probably matter more today than ever. We know how bad things are going to get, but we also know that it always looks darkest right before the light. We know that we can turn this around if we come together and really center the stories of those who are most impacted by these evils, the evils of militarism, racism, and economic injustice. And if we're willing to take risks, right? Because there is nothing that's going to come to us if we don't start to take risks and start to get serious. The Poor People's Campaign is not just about bringing people together. It is about that, especially across racial and economic lines. But it's about pushing the envelope about what's acceptable action, right? And we come out here and we demonstrate, and it's important, and we must carry on the legacy of King. But King's legacy was also about staring down riot police and Ku Klux Klan members on the bridge in Selma and deciding to walk across that bridge, right? So it's up to us to find that courage, find that love in our hearts, you know, think deeply about what we're willing to do to advance the cause that King stood for, which is peace, love, and justice for all people. So thank you all very much. I hope to see you in the streets during the Poor People's Campaign.
Thanks, man. We're building a movement. Different forces, different troops, different organizations coming together for common cause. We're not in different silos. We're going to build one mighty movement for the people. Brother Zaid, wrap it up for us on the speechifying. Then we'll have our illustrious singers.
Mic check. Everybody hear me? Yes. All power to the people.
Power to the people.
All power to the people.
Power to the people.
All power to the people.
Power to the people.
Won't be long, but just first, I want all of you to give yourselves a round of applause. Right? Came out. A lot of y'all were here close to 4:30. I'm like, come on, how y'all did that? You know, I hope y'all got your jobs tomorrow. If not, we appreciate you taking your stand, though, because that's really what this legacy is about. To anybody out here that's like 50 and down, I want you to take a minute and appreciate several things. One, it was around this time, 50 years ago, when it stopped raining, those clouds broke, that sun came out, and he took his sweet country face out on that balcony to get some of that fresh air, and that assassin took that shot. Most of y'all are not old enough to remember that. But those of us who are, we remember, we still feel that, right? And we have an obligation to those who are younger to understand what that means to carry the pain of historical trauma unique to moments like that. That is a never forget moment for people of African descent in this country. Never forget. And I'm saying that as a child of the Black Panther Party, right? And for all of our people felt that way. Now let me tie some things up very quickly. Because I know y'all probably saying, well, yeah, right, you Panther, why you say that? Let's make it plain. Panther Party had 3 growth spurts. That legendary march on Sacramento over the right to bear arms. Growth spurt number 1. Then the epic Newark Rebellion. Right here in 67. Growth spurt number 2. But when they killed Dr. King, everybody who was on the fence that was trying to figure out which way to go from that incredible generation said, that's it. And after they killed him, at the time he was considered by Hoover's FBI the greatest threat to the internal security of the United States. To Dr. King. Paperwork is clear. They take him off the scene, and of course, who gets in the crosshairs of all that? All those young people who went into the Black Panther Party. So we appreciate that sacrifice. We understand what that sacrifice demanded of us at that historical moment. And some of us have been trying to bear that for a long time. But one other thing is I want to share something with you that's right in our face, on our watch, right? Some of y'all holding these blue signs up, right? Those blue signs are from a coalition initiated by the ACLU called NCAP, right? Newark Communities for Accountable Policing. The People's Organization for Progress belongs to NCAP. You heard my daughter Keisha Uri, Newark Anti-Violence Coalition is a part of NCAP. We're supposed to have some folks from 1199 that should be here, belong to NCAP. Who's here from 1199? Right on, okay? Right? Any organizations that are interested in becoming a part of this struggle in our town right now for our Civilian Review Board. A struggle that goes back to 1964. 1964. And some racist judge said, well, you can't have it like that because this is what the book said. The book said for over 200 and some odd years that it was all right for your ancestors to keep our ancestors in slavery. All right. It wasn't right then, and this ain't right now. So we calling on history, we calling on the people to raise the kind of pressure, to put the kind of fire together, to turn this thing around in the courts so Newark can again lead the way. Newark can again lead the way on the front of social justice. Because I'm telling you, all eyes are on Newark. You guys not in Newark might not understand. But my Newark family, you do understand. And I'm going to tell y'all, Brother Saeed, I hear y'all got some nice art projects in Newark. But what's happening with the Civilian Review Board? Call from Seattle, Brother Saeed. Construction's going up all over the place in Newark. But what's happening with the Civilian Review Board? And the call from Chicago, Brother Saeed. There are all kind of great things that happen. That Amiri Baraka's son is really doing it. But what's happening with the Civilian Review Board? What's going to happen with the Civilian Review Board is that we got to create the kind of movement to make it happen. Act of self-determination from the people. All empowered and went to that city hall and made them in unanimity. Unanimously, I'm trying to say it. I'm getting tongue twisted in this damn wind. Forgive me. Right? Together. So we're going to have this. Right? That's right. So, we are saying now to the state of New Jersey, Murphy, your new Attorney General, what's his brother's name? I forgot the new brother's name. Y'all owe us.
Yes, right.
And history requires that you do the right thing anyway, whether you owe us or not. We all owe it to history to seize this important moment.
That's right.
Most of y'all wasn't here in '68, but this is 2018. This is on our watch. This is on our time. We can be the ones to shorten this list. This list of Stephon Clarks needs to stop.
That's right.
There needs to be accountable policing in these United States, not just in Newark, but in this whole country. And why is that so important? Not just because Black Lives Matter, because it is essential to the principles of democracy. Y'all understand what I'm saying? It is essential to the principles of democracy. In democracy, civilians are control over the military.
That's right.
Y'all understand that? And why is that not happening in black and brown communities? Because democracy ain't nothing but a hypocrisy until we change the game. So in the name of ancestors like Dr. King, the time has come to change the game. In the name of ancestors who lost their lives all throughout the movement, like the Fannie Lou Hamers and the Ella Bumpers, all those Panthers that we lost, and I still got some in prison. The time has come to change the game. In the name of everyone who stands up, whose shoulders we stand on, the time has come to change the game. So we honor Martin. How do we honor Martin? By continuing the struggle, building the united front, putting the pressure on the state, and doing whatever is necessary to create peace.
That's right.
With justice.
That's right.
All power to the people.
Power to the people. Peace time. I promise, and I gotta uphold the promise. A little culture, a little revolutionary culture. Come on, Carlos. Good. We're shrinking. The cold is drawing us up.
The sun's going down.
In honor of Martin Luther King, who was a social justice fighter. Let's get that clear. And also, I want to commemorate the veterans of the Poor People's March, in which I lived in Resurrection City, and many people who don't even know that. Many people just, they talk and they'd be talking all this jive talk and all these things, but the struggle was going on. And the many people that went and lived in Resurrection City. There was Corky Gonzalez from Colorado. There was Rene Tejena from New Mexico. There were so many people that we lived there and we joined. So I just want to commemorate all the people who struggled, all those who were conscious. I'm not talking about the dead ones, the deaf, dumb, and blind, but the ones who were conscious that fought. And not talking out of talking. Okay, this is in reference and memory to all those people, the veterans of the Poor People's March in Resurrection City. 50 moons have passed, 50 half springs have prepared, 50 summers of hidden stars, the poor still poor as before. Workers are living, waiting for a living wage. Hunger sits in every city and every state. Debt rises faster than every city as the air police brutality. While the fascists are rising in every second, the KKK, the skinheads, the National Socialists, the white National Socialist Party, they know it's a lie, but they live under the mass of hatred. Throughout this country, the gentrifiers removing the natives from their homes. Violent wars abroad and at home. A nation of prisons made up of poor, of workers, and political prisoners. And in New York, Wall Street laughs at its holy prophet dancing as a moral monster. And on this Wednesday afternoon, April the 4th of 2018, 50 years of anniversary, we pass and honor Dr. Martin Luther King, a social conscience that fought for the workers. Remember when Martin spoke against the war against the Vietnamese people, marching for human rights, for peace, for justice, and in honoring the striking sanitation workers who were fighting for decency and human rights, and ending hunger, housing. And now the poor are on a crossroads. Where do we go from here, as the doctor said, in unity of 50 years ago? We honor those who fought and marched in the Poor People's March, Poor People's Campaign, and lived in Resurrection City. Because the struggle is still not over. The struggle continues with all types of fancy names and all types of people that say that they represent the people. The poor are still poor. They're still in jail. The war is still on. And not the minds of those who live in illusions. The struggle continues. Power to the people. Thank you.
Power to the people.
Power to the people. We know some love will follow. Thursday night, every Thursday night, People's Organization for Progress meets at Assassination Baptist Church, 6:30 to 9. This week, we have the honor of honoring the sisters. Because if y'all remember, there was snowstorms like every other Thursday. And our Women's History Month and Women's Celebration kept getting pushed back. So rain or shine, snow or hail, hurricane or volcano, we have our women's program this Thursday. And we invite you all to join the sisters in celebrating the struggle of women and the African contributions, shoulder to shoulder with the men in the struggle for a better world. In commemoration and remembrance of the modern civil rights movement that gave inspiration and guidance and example to other social transformation movements, the women's movement, the LGBT movement, the modern civil rights movement, which is the vanguard of the Black freedom struggle, gave birth, or not birth, but inspired those other social movements. And the anthem of that movement was "We Shall Overcome," and the Solidarity Singers. We'd ask you to join us in one stanza and a remembrance in remembrance of the soldiers and martyrs of the modern civil rights movement and the outstanding leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome. We are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday.
We shall live in peace.
We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe
Newark hub.
We shall